Good morning, good afternoon. I am streaming live on etalk.tv for the Haunted Marathon and hoping for the best for my connection here. This is the first time I'm going live. I'm really excited about that. We've got some really great aspects going on. If you were wondering what the hell is going on in the heavens and what is up your anus, I'm so glad you guys could join me here today. If you are listening live, welcome on eTalk. This show is going to be recorded and I am going to upload it onto YouTube. So if you want to catch the archive on YouTube, when I upload my show, I have video. So I share my screen so you can see what the chart looks like, which is really cool if you're trying to learn astrology. I mean, that's the way I learned astrology. I listened to other astrologers, and back in my day, we just had Blog Talk Radio. So I cut my astrology teeth on podcasts and Google University of Astrology, basically. Um, so, yeah, I mean, a lot of people are interested in astrology, and more people these days are happy to tell you their sun sign, rising, and moon sign, which I think is fantastic. It really definitely tickles me. But when I started learning, I had a few readings. I didn't have a whole lot of money to spend on that, which was frustrating. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to figure this stuff out for myself. And that's what I did. So if you're following along, and you want to go, or you're listening live and you want to go back to the archive and hear us again, you can check out my channel on YouTube, AstroLunaChick. And if you want to connect with me on social media, I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and on eTalk. So if you're just catching this on YouTube or Spotify, I'm on Spotify too. Go over and check out etalk.tv. This is a streaming internet radio station, and we have a really fabulous lineup of shows. And I'm just getting to know some of the show hosts, but a few of them I already am well acquainted with, like Dave and Russ from Beyond the Strange. And if you follow their show, I've been on their show quite a few times. So, yeah, check it out. There's a lot of fantastic shows, a lot of fringe stuff that you don't find, So if you're like me and you like the weird and mysterious and strange topics, definitely check out etalk.tv. Go over and make yourself a little profile, because we have a social media network happening over here. And with that said, if you're listening live and you're not in the chat room, you should be ashamed of yourself right now. Okay, so anyway, so maybe in the future I will be able to take live calls. I didn't realize that we don't have a phone number, or I guess I'm sure there's a way I could do it, but 15 minutes before the show, and I hadn't figured that out yet. So guess what? You have no choice but to get your butt in the chat room and go over and say hi. Because who do we have over here? Let's see. Red Pill and Rabbit Holes. Hello. Jago Fetch. Hi, yes, I am on. Jago Fetch asks if Susan Lunachick is on, and I'm on. In answer to your question, here I am. We had a little blurb there. I think I didn't quite get in live in time, and maybe the other show started again, but that's cool. It's all good. Live radio, lots of fun. Jeff Riddell, creator of eTalk, the website, fantastic guy, and much thanks to Jeff for setting this up. This is fantabulous. So, I have been a podcast junkie for so many years. So I have been planning on doing my radio show for so long. And for those of you who know me, they know I have been threatening to start my show. And here I am. And it's perfect timing. As I look at the chart, it is perfect timing. Absolutely. Long time coming for me, but perfect timing. So let's get into some astrology. What do you say? Let's check it out. So I'm going to be sharing my screen on the YouTubes. So don't forget, you can always go back and check that out because there will be an archive. But for now, we are live. So what do we got going on here? Woohoo! This is a fantastic chart. And no matter where you are, whether you're on the East Coast or the West Coast right now, the moon is at 9 degrees of Libra, which happens to be the degree of the station of Mercury when Mercury went retrograde. That's Mercury station, retrograde station degree. So on some level, as the moon passes this degree, we are really wrapping up whatever the Mercury retrograde story was for everybody. And I hope that all went well for you all. It was an interesting one for me, to say the least, and in the greater collective was pretty interesting too. I like to demystify the Mercury retrograde and all retrogrades. It's not a time to be fearful or not do anything that you need to do. It's not the best time to plan big things because the energy changes and we get a lot of information with Mercury retrograde during that time. So it's more of kind of watch and see, but it's over now. Thank goodness. And we have the moon is waning. It is not void, of course. I'll explain that maybe later in the show, but that's a good thing. But we are winding down to what is called the dark of the moon. And that's about 30 degrees roughly before the new moon. So the dark of the moon really doesn't have a whole lot of energy left. In fact, if you pay attention, usually you'll find that we're kind of lagging in energy. We usually don't have a lot of big things happening. The moon is just sort of coasting into that new moon. And it's really a time to, if you're playing it consciously, to go within and kind of evaluate, take stock, take inventory of everything that's happened in the previous 28 or so days from the last new moon to this coming new moon. And when I learned that, when I was studying astrology and I learned how to move with the seasons and with the moon cycles, oh my God, it made life so much easier because I realized that in the dark of the moon, or really in the last quarter of the moon, I would really get a whole lot of ideas and downloads and like, oh my God, I figured it out. I know what I need to do now. And I would act on it. And then it just wouldn't really go anywhere. But when I started to understand the cycles of astrology, and those are energy waves, and sometimes we're up and sometimes we're down. And, there's a time for everything. There's a season for everything. So to understand your chart, first of all, to know where you are in the cycle, the greater cycle of the year, let's say. But if we follow the monthly cycles, it is so much smoother, I think, because it's like sailing, You're not going to go anywhere unless you have the wind at your back and your sail is angled properly, and you want to catch that breeze, that cool breeze that's going to blow you where you want to go. Or surfing, surfing the energy waves. So where we're at right now in the dark of the moon, just before the new moon, it's a good time to take some time to consciously evaluate, to go within, to assimilate everything that's happened over the past moon cycle and scratch things off your list. If you're working towards a goal and you've exhausted certain options, or you find things are just not running as smoothly and you want to cut certain things out, or maybe change direction a little bit, now's the time to evaluate that. And when we get into the next after the new moon, because you'll if you really pay attention to the energy, and you will feel a shift in the energy. And I noticed that I'll tend to have less energy during the waning moon when we're just about there. It's like, oh my gosh, we're almost out of gas. And then we get to the new moon and it's like, whew, okay, all right, now dust it off and ready to go with the next moon cycle. But if you actually work with the moon cycles as far as manifesting, as far as using it for your creative cycles, intention work, that kind of stuff. I usually like to wait until about when the moon gets to be about 30 degrees roughly, because that's when we'll see the first the lunar crescent after the new moon, right? Because there's no moon, there's nothing visible. And in ancient times, the way people followed the astrology, basically the moon was the most visible, and they would wait to see the first visible crescent, and they would gauge where the moon was in relation to the other planets, the stars, whether they were fortunate or not so fortunate. So the rising crescent, when it first became visible, was very important. Now, That's naked eye astrology. So if you're, if the weather's not good, it might be a while before you see that crescent, but that crescent, waxing crescent, indicates the start, the beginning. Okay. And they would also look at the signs and the auguries, good omens and bad omens. And that's the way they worked it. So here we are in the dark of the moon. We're assimilating, we're transmuting everything that we have been through over the last cycle, and scratching things off the list. It's a good time to rest. It's a good time for self-care. I don't know. My energy tends to go with the moon. And when I started realizing that I was so affected by the moon, you don't want to be. We don't want to be. We don't want to think that something is has that much control, but it does. And I do definitely think that we need to live above our charts. We need to learn to rise above whatever the challenges of our charts are. But I mean, some things just can't be helped. We're, what is it, 80% water, and the moon affects the tides. So that's how affected we are by the moon. I mean, you see what happens around the full moon with the lunacy. But, with all that being said, this is going to be a really exciting new moon cycle because we have a solar eclipse. Dun, dun, dun. It is a partial solar eclipse, which has to do with the nodes of the moon, the nodes being a mathematical point. It is the point where the path of the moon and the path of the sun cross. So it's a karmic point. It's a destiny and fate type point in the chart, and everyone has one. The north and south nodes of the moon are polar opposite of one another, always in degree. And what determines whether we have a partial or total eclipse is how close the sun and the moon are to the nodes of the moon. And in this case, we got the south node at 14 degrees of Scorpio, and the eclipse is not going to be that close. I think it's like a 3-4 degrees of Scorpio. So we're talking a 10-degree difference. It's still close enough for rock and roll. So we're having an eclipse. Yay, which we have every 6 months. So it's not that much of a rarity. But in ancient times, it was a pretty stressful thing because eclipses brought big changes, and they do bring big changes. And the changes that are happening for each of us individually depend on where the eclipse is in relation to our chart. If you don't have any planets or points at 4 degrees of Scorpio, then it's not really going to directly affect you. But if you do, if you have an eclipse on a planet or a significant point in your chart, then you're going to be personally feeling that eclipse. So don't get scared, because eclipses are really wonderful things. I look at the cycles of astrology, let's say the yearly cycle, as like a season of your favorite, Netflix show that you're binge watching. And within that season, you have certain plot lines and you have characters that come in and play different roles. So whatever you have during that season is what you're working with. And that would be determined by the planets and how they're transiting your chart. So it's a good thing to, if you understand astrology and you know your chart, to look and check and see where the eclipses are happening in your chart. Again, it's a 6-month thing. Like every 6 months, we're having these eclipses, and they have to do with the nodes of the moon, which move through a sign. It takes about 18 months. So about a year and a half, we're dealing with a significant theme in life. So we are working through that area of life, and the eclipses are what bring things to light. They begin things and they end things. So it's nice to be able to go in and like check the script, so to speak, of this season to find out what is the basic plot line. And now a lot of people feel like these things are totally fated and we have no control. In a sense, part of that is true. There are certain things that we will have to go through. We don't have a choice on certain things, in the sense that it is a certain area of life that we maybe have to deal with. It's the people in our life that we are on the journey with and working through these issues with. And it is really all about our soul's growth. And, we have to have certain experiences in order to bring things up from the surface, from the depths to the surface, so that we could be aware of what's going on. But the astrology chart gives us so many tools for working through this. And this eclipse is going to be kind of interesting because it is in Scorpio, and Scorpio is a very deep sign. It's a water sign, so it has to do a lot with emotions, sensitivities. It has to do with the occult, which is hidden things, things below the surface that we don't necessarily deal with in our conscious life all the time. And Scorpio does deal with taboo subjects, and Scorpio rules what we like to say in astrology: sex, death, and taxes. So what does that mean? Now, in the chart, we have houses, which indicate areas of life. And Scorpio is the natural sign of the 8th house in the chart. Now, the 8th house deals with sex and intimacy, in the sense of it shows how we interact with another person intimately. It's what we share intimately with other people. It's like you have a relationship, you get to know one another deeply, and then you decide, okay, you want to trust that person and expose your innermost secrets, which includes sharing your body. So there's the sex part of it. And it has to do with, Scorpio has to do with procreation. It rules the generative organs, the sex organs. So that's where we get the association with sex, with Scorpio. So death, well, if we didn't have Scorpio ruled people, we wouldn't have private investigators that are, trying to crack cold cases of missing people and people who have been victims of crime, murder. We wouldn't have undertakers and morticians. we wouldn't have those types of professions. So that's all ruled by Scorpio. Scorpio rules research, rules, so yeah, private investigators, um, death in the sense of the death of the body, yes, but also the death and rebirth process in terms of our spiritual growth, because we go through ego death and things end and we have to let go. Scorpio is about attachments and it's a fixed sign. So we have 4 fixed signs. That's Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. So Scorpio is fixed water. So it's emotional attachment. So that's again when we're getting deep into a relationship with someone, getting to know them, allowing them to know us, being vulnerable. That is a transformation that we go through because we allow someone in, and we do form an emotional attachment. So then when we lose someone, whether to death or a breakup or an ending of a friendship, whatever, that's when we can experience the scorpionic ego death and learning to let go. Scorpio doesn't really like to let go sometimes. Scorpio, the sign rules obsession, so like that's where we get like that stalkerific kind of energy coming from. And again, that's not to say all Scorpios are like that. So like, don't get all upset. Don't tell me. But I've known a lot of Scorpios quite well. And I can say that when you find an evolved Scorpio, you found a rare gem, because that person has been through hell and back to, they really do go to like the brink of death, whether literally or metaphorically. And they're still here. Scorpio really does go deep. So if you have any Scorpio planets, then you know what I'm talking about. Like, they're not afraid to really, look death in the face, and they're quite courageous, and I wouldn't say they're not afraid, but they don't shy away from the taboo type stuff or the opportunity to transform. And sometimes they throw themselves into it in not such a healthy way. But you know what? That's kind of the way they learn. Yeah. So I am going to check in with my chat room here on eTalk. Oh my God. The elf has graced us with his presence. What's for breakfast, elf? Or lunch? I don't know what it is where you are. Are we having Oreos for breakfast? All right, yeah. So we have an elf. We have an elf in the chat room. Beyond the Strange has joined us. Thank you. I'm thinking that's you, Dave. Jeff is still here. Jago Fetch. I hope I'm saying that right. I don't know you, but I'm happy to make your acquaintance. Happy you all could be here today. Is anybody going to get a reading? If anybody's brave enough, I'd be happy to read for you guys. In about a half hour or so, I'm going to chit chat a little bit more about the astrology. Yeah, so we covered the eclipses, what they mean. So considering last week, I would say that we kind of got a little hint about what might be coming up with the eclipses, because the sun and Venus were traveling together and made a square to Pluto in Capricorn. Now, a square is an energy of friction. So whatever came up, whether it was just a sense of like impending change or something like really big about to happen, because Pluto rules Scorpio. All right. So if you're not familiar with astrology, we've got planets, we've got signs, and planets that are associated with the signs. They carry the same energy. The planets move, signs don't. So we have got a little bit of a taste of what this transformation, because Pluto associated with Scorpio, same energy, because Pluto rules Scorpio, it's a deep transformation we're going through. And if you look at what's going on in the world, there's a lot of fear going on. There's a lot of threat of like annihilation. I mean, that's all Pluto ruled stuff, and death. I mean, like this is what the planetary aspects bring up, because we need to transmute it. We need to face it. That's what Scorpio is all about. So keep that in mind this Scorpio season with this eclipse and all through the month of Scorpio. Yeah, it's a month. Keep in mind what your personal transformation and death and rebirth process is about. Because when you consciously focus on that, you will get answers to whatever it is that you have going on, and what your transformation, what you need to transmute. This is the alchemy of the soul, turning lead into gold, the lead of the ego, the baggage, the psychic trash, so to speak, that accumulates through our lifetime, and whatever we're inheriting, all that gets encoded in our genes. So whether you believe in past lives or not, we're carrying a ton of stuff that we have no idea about. And Scorpio and the 8th house is all of our stuff that is contained in our part of it, of our subconscious, that we're not aware of. So cleaning out the trash. Scorpio rules the organs of elimination. All right. So think of how unhealthy it is if you're not excreting, like if you're not like letting the waste out. God, you become toxic. So we can become emotionally toxic if we're not working through our stuff. So that's why it's very important to do the inner work, to really look at ourselves and kind of get a real handle on what's going on in our thoughts, what's happening with our emotions. How do we work past difficult situations? Transformation. It's all about Scorpio. And I just love this time of year, really. I love the death process. I love that we have Halloween and Dia de los Muertos, where we are more aware of those who have passed on, right? And the spiritual realms that are, not we don't deal with every day, but they're there. It's there. The paranormal, the occult, the things that are taboo, the things we don't want to talk about. uh, I want to talk about them. I don't know why people don't want to talk about them. I want to talk about them, but it does scare a lot of people because it brings up the topic of death and or are a threat to our physical safety. Listen, demons are no joke. So it's like I get it why people are scared of that stuff, but that's it takes a special person to be able to deal with the dark side, so to speak. You have to be built for that. That's not something you just walk into. So people who deal with that stuff, psychic mediums, demonologists, paranormal investigators, they all have something in their chart that draws them to that type of work. They have some kind of fortitude for it. And to me, if you're out of your depth and it's just a curiosity thing, that you might have a difficult experience with it, whereas someone else who was built for that is going to have spiritual support and the tools for that to be some kind of spiritual warrior. It's not for everybody. So those are things to kind of think about during Scorpio season, why we're so fascinated, with the occult and seances and horror films and true crime and all that stuff, mysteries. There's something about it. We get something out of that. All right, let's go back to the chart. I'm rambling too much. Part of this is going to be my weekly. I'm going to blow through it really quick, I'm sure, but the weekly astrology. But I really just wanted to talk about the eclipse that we're having. And that is happening on the 25th. Today's the 23rd. And as I like to do, I'm reducing the date down to a 3. So we're at a 3 in the progression of energy. I go with the date, I reduce it the way you do with numerology. You just add up all the numbers. I like to look at the cycles and what's starting on a 1 day and then what is culminating on the 9 day. And then starting again with the 1. So we're only at about a 3 right now. That means something different for everybody. You need to be keeping track of what's going on with you. And if you keep a journal with astrology, that's a fantastic thing because you can start to see the cycles and the patterns. So we've got the moon in Libra. We've got a cute little chat room going on here. Dragon Rose. Hey, girl. Dragon Rose is a follower of Beyond Strange, and I know I've read for Dragon Rose before, and we're friends on Facebook. So welcome to the chat room. This is really cool. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for being here on a Sunday afternoon or morning. Might be morning where you guys are. It's afternoon. I'm on the East Coast right now. For those of you who know, I'm back and forth between East Coast, West Coast, trying to make peace between the two. And I happen to be on the East Coast right now where it is a beautiful fall day. And I got here just in time to see the gorgeous colors and the leaves changing. I think we're just about at peak color here in the Hudson Valley. And we had turkeys in our backyard. Yeah, baby. It's almost Thanksgiving. Oh my God, I can't stand it. All right, Moon in Libra. So we just had the Sun and Venus, which are traveling together. They have been in Libra the whole past weeks and coming to a square with Pluto, as I was saying. So definitely rounding a corner with some sort of change, death and rebirth as we were going into Scorpio season. But up until now, they have been in the sign of Libra, which has been fantastic, I have to say, because it just seems like there was just a lot more peace and harmony interpersonally. I'd like to think that there was some form of diplomacy going out in the world, or at least calls for diplomacy. Um, yeah, with all that craziness, but it was just really, really a pleasant vibe. We've got Mercury in Libra still, so that's, it's really pleasant. It's very diplomatic. It's agreeable. Uh, Libra likes to keep the peace. If Libra has any faults, it's maybe going along to get along to their detriment, or doing the frenemies thing, not want to make any enemies out of anybody, and getting along with everybody, but maybe they might feel some type of way that they don't let on, and they don't want to be, they don't like to like make waves. So whatever, it's been nice. It's been really nice. I mean, now that we're in Scorpio, things are shifting. So just yesterday, I believe it was, and I am sharing my screen on the YouTubes. Venus and the Sun went into Scorpio together, hand in hand. So the Sun it represents in our chart our soul, our spirit part of us. It can be the ego, it can be the authority figures if you're just looking at a chart to see like what's going on in the general sense. So as we have a shift into Scorpio and the Sun is going into Scorpio with Venus, that is going to a deeper level. In Libra, we wanted to just get along and, have harmony and balance and enjoy the good things in life. In Scorpio, we want something more. We want to know more. So if you think of it in terms of relationship with people, you're going out, you're having a good time, you're getting to know one another, you're getting to work the balance of the self and the other, my needs and your needs, where we're going together, how we fit as a couple, as a friendship, as a work, related, team on a project, where we balance one another out. Now you get into Scorpio. So we start to get to know people on a deeper level. We want to know more about the situation. This is where we start to investigate. So if you like to research things, and you probably have some Scorpio in your chart, this Scorpio season is going to be the bomb, because Scorpio has a way of dragging the lake and dredging up the bodies. So if you really want to go treasure hunting or investigating, or you want to really research a topic deeply, or you want to I don't know, look at a person in your life a little bit more deeply. Maybe you just met somebody on a dating site and you want to like get one of those personality profiles, or you want to get a chart reading on them. You want to go to a psychic and and do a little digging, check things out. That's the kind of thing that Scorpio likes to do. So I would imagine there's going to be a ton of interesting things coming out when it comes to the media and news, and even, you know, within our interpersonal relationships, things that we didn't know, because eclipses bring out secrets in Scorpio, and the South Node is a point of release. So there are things that are going to play out over this Scorpio season after this eclipse. And every time that point is triggered, that will be very interesting. Now, for those of you who know me, I like to talk about the not just the planets, but asteroids. And if you are into researching the asteroids, this eclipse is not just conjunct Venus, which has to do with relationships, females, money and finance. It has to do with also the arts, entertainment, creative processes, projects like that. Venus is the feminine aspect. That's why, you know, it relates to women, but feminine in the sense of how we attract what we attract. So that's food for thought. If you're wondering why you have certain experiences, why you have certain people in your life, you know, or challenging things, it does bring our focus to relationships, women in a larger sense. But the asteroid that I thought was very interesting is called Rhadamanthus. And I'm going to read from a website just briefly to get an idea of who Rhadamanthus is. And I won't go into the mythology, but the overall themes, looking at a website called astrologicaldepth.com and looking up Rhadamanthus, which is spelled with an RH, Rhadamanthus. And I thought this was very interesting because it really goes in line with the scorpionic themes. Rhadamanthus represents overarching systems that structure and control humans and understand humans and our world better than humans do. It works with open versus closed minds. Here one is being evaluated, tested, and judged by a higher power or a more knowing, non-human awareness on their worthiness and incorruptibility. At the same time, this body addresses human fallibility and judgment, even when they believe they are acting on the instructions and will of a higher power. Thus, judgment and analysis are the focus of this body. So, in a nutshell, Rhadamanthus is one of those judges of the underworld, that the theme of the myth of Rhadamanthus, and the archetype is the judge of the underworld. So this will talk about judges in general, but keep in mind what I just read and how that might apply to whatever you're observing, what you're experiencing. And I think that's going to have some interesting effects on this eclipse because it's activating Rhadamanthus and this whole concept of something beyond us that we're not aware of that is judging us. So interestingly, we have the astrological sign of the zodiacs, but the stars that are associated with those degrees of the zodiac in Scorpio are actually the stars of Libra. And I want to explain right now, it's something having to do with the very long cycles of precession there was at one time where these stars and the zodiac sign lined up, but we have progressed, processed beyond that. So if I'm looking at the stars, this is why you have Vedic astrology and tropical astrology. Won't go into it. But the interesting thing about the stars that are associated with this, the sign of Scorpio, is that it's the constellation of Libra, not the zodiac sign, but the constellation. So the sign of Libra, the symbol is the balance of the scales. So this is the sense of some sort of spiritual judgment of the weighing of the balance of the scales. It's like the Egyptian concept of the weighing of the heart against the feather, and to be judged blameless is to have a heart that is light and not heavy with the lead, which is what we're supposed to transmute, all the negativity, what's considered to be negative action, negative what do you call it? Negative emotions, our ego, that kind of thing. So this is going to be a really interesting Scorpio season. And I just want to check back in with the chat for a second, because I know I had somebody did leave their birth information. A few people did. Okay, we'll see what we have time for. I'm just going to wrap up a little bit with the eclipse and what's going on with the astrology. And it was it Jago Fetch? Red pills and rabbit holes. Okay. So I do have someone. All right, we have one person. I'm not sure how much we're going to have time for, but let me just get through this right now, because I'm like just rambling on. But the stars, just to sum up, the important stars in the zodiac sign of Scorpio, are in the constellation of Libra. And if you plot the meaning of those stars as you progress through Scorpio, it is all about the path of the initiate and the activation of the crown chakra, which is our connection to spirit. So this is like spirit looking down on us and saying, okay, you're going to have to walk through these tests. You're going to be tested. And that means you're going to be tempted to veer off the path. And you have to really, you're looking at yourself and you're looking at your motives and you're deep in your heart. And, will you choose selfishness? Will you choose light? Will you choose dark? Will you choose to be in alignment with your soul's path and what God has for you? what spirit has intended for you, for your highest good, and always looking for the highest good of ourselves, for other people, what's good for the collective. And so we walk through certain tests with this initiation through Scorpio. It is, can you walk through hell and come back out of it a better person? So that's what we're going through with this Scorpio eclipse. It's the beginning. All right. So just quickly going through the week. Tomorrow, the 24th, that's the 4-day. We're still with Moon in Libra. It's going to conjunct Mercury. So Mercury is our mind, our communications. Perhaps we're coming to some kind of decision, or getting information, communications that is going to help us make a decision. This might be something that we are probably aware of, or something that we're trying to get a handle on to see where the situation is going, where we want to take our next steps. We might have gotten clues about it with the past week when we had the Sun and Venus squaring Pluto. It could be about a relationship, about financial situation. It could be a project, taking a project to the next phase, what we need to do based on our values. Venus is our values. So all of that theme from last week, when we had that intense square between the Sun and Venus and Pluto, as Mercury is approaching its own square to Pluto, that's where we communicate the change in the relationship, going to the next level, next phase, rounding the corner, making a decision, taking action, reaching out, some sort of communication, or coming to a conclusion within our mind. If we're seeking information, answers, because it's still the dark of the moon, it's a great time to just quiet yourself and listen. Just listen to what's going on in a general sense. I find when I am seeking answers, I don't know what to do about a situation, or I don't understand something, I'll just put it out there. Like, I wonder about ... I ask the question, and then I will get an answer. Maybe not right away, because I've listened for the voice to speak to me, and I don't hear voices. So that's just not me. That would be clairaudience. And I've never, I want to say I've never had that experience. That might not be true. It's generally not true for me. I get my information through other means. Clairsentience, I have feeling. I get practical signs. Information comes to me just through everyday means. So that's just not me. But if that's you, and you have like that kind of like radio connection, ooh, that's what I wanted to talk about. My other favorite asteroid, my new best friend asteroid. All right, we're going to talk about that in a second. Let me finish my thought. Yeah, so good time for communication. If you want to have that wrap up conversation with somebody before going on to the next phase after the new moon, good time for that to happen. Because there's a sense of that needing to happen. And if it doesn't happen, then maybe you have an understanding of what you needs to happen with the moon Mercury. That would be a good thing to go in within and like kind of have that like rehearsal of the conversation. And it will happen probably, or you will get that news when Mercury squares Pluto later in the week. All right, so that's the 24th. Moon makes a harmonious aspect to Mars in Gemini, pretty free-flowing, ease of communication, feeling like, you're ready to take action on things. Looking at your motives, other people's motives, that's a good thing to do with the moon trine the Mercury. I'm sorry, Mars in Gemini. What else we got? It'll make moon will make a supportive aspect to Saturn. Saturn went direct today. That's what I forgot. So that's a big deal. Saturn has been retrograde for quite some time now. So if you are a Saturn ruled person, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. Or if you are Aquarius, or if you have planets around 19 degrees of Aquarius, that'll be helpful, because that means that things can move forward in the sense of Saturn structures, maturity, wisdom, Capricorn type themes of like business and achievement and structure of government. That's what's going to start moving forward. So, you might feel a shift if you're a Capricorn, or if you're an Aquarius, probably would be affected by that mostly. All right, so that's, not a bad aspect to have. And then on the 25th, that's a 5-day. We've got the sun and Venus at 3 degrees, and the moon will complete that trio, and we have the solar eclipse. 3 degrees of Scorpio. So if you know what you have in your chart, if there's anything that you have around that, we like to give it a few degrees on either side. So if you have planets or points at the very last degrees of Libra, or around 3 degrees to about, 13 degrees, the further away, the less intense the influence. So who's going to feel it the most is the Scorpio or end of Libra, and then the Tauruses, because that would be opposite. So they might be having that play out in their relationships with other people. Aquariuses will feel it if you have things even at the last degrees of Capricorn, around that 27 degrees where Pluto is. That will be highly affected because the sun and Venus just squared Pluto. Big changes in structures and the traditional ways. The old world is passing away, so to speak. Our system of government is breaking down, and we're trying to create some kind of new structure there. But, it doesn't happen overnight, but we can see now, where the system is sorely in need of change. Yeah. So end of Capricorn degrees are going to be impacted. The beginning of Aquarius is impacted. And also Leo. So if you got anything at the very end of Cancer, the late degrees of Cancer into the beginning of Leo, those are the people that are going to be feeling it the most. And it could be just this sense of, wow, things are really getting serious. Things need to transform and change. Getting an idea of, we focus so much on what the problem is. I think we're all so aware now of what is not working. And the frustration of feeling like we can't change things. But there can be this sense of frustration and helplessness and feeling like all of this is outside of our control, and talking about how they are what they are doing. I think we're all so well aware of what they are doing right now. I think that the shift that is happening is for us to realize the tremendous power that we have. There is power in our energy, and where we choose to focus, what we choose to agree with and participate with and give our energy to, what our thoughts and our emotions are centered around, how we use our words. Words are spells, so the more we're saying, well, they're doing this and they're doing that, and I think we need to put less focus on what they are doing. Think about it as a dysfunctional relationship, because it is. How do you transform it? Well, you start to release your attachment to it. We don't need anybody's permission to live a prosperous life here on planet Earth. We think we do, but we really don't. We're in the majority. And sometimes we need to realize that just making a conscious decision that we don't want that. We don't want that. So we're well aware of what we don't want right now, but now is the time that we need to start understanding our power. Our power of creation and manifestation comes from what we put our energy into, right? So if we're putting all of our energy into pointing out the problem, well, the shift that needs to happen is we start looking at the solution. If you have a friend that's just a butthole, and the friend group has always put up with that butthole, and it's just that's just the way so and so is. Well, maybe that person is bringing drama that nobody needs and nobody wants, and it's time to put them in time out. So you just stop inviting them to things, right? Or if you're with somebody, dating them, and they're just not they're not facing their stuff perhaps, and it's causing conflict in the relationship, well, what do? You're going to remain stagnant. And that's the thing about Scorpio. Scorpio, when that water of Scorpio is not moving forward, it gets stagnant and dead. So, it's time to excrete these negative thoughts, this hopelessness, they have all the power and we don't. We can stop participating to the degree that we're able. So we stop participating in the situation, or giving it our attention, or letting it control how we feel, how our emotions, to shift our emotions. That's transmutation. When we can look at something and it doesn't bother us anymore, and we're not triggered anymore. All right, this is Scorpio, and this is what the idea of alchemy is all about. The healing that goes on to where that trauma doesn't affect us anymore. We don't get depressed when we hear stuff on the news, but that really bothers us. We don't get wrapped up in it. That's going to be important this Scorpio season, because it's going to be a shit show. Sorry. Ah, it's Sunday. I said I wasn't going to swear, but I guess I blew that. That's all right. It's cool. I figured, it's the Lord's Day. All right, so moving on, that's Tuesday. That's the eclipse. Um, it's not really recommended to take any risky actions on eclipses because eclipses are times when fateful things can happen. And the energy is just kind of wonky. And we're sort of, especially I feel like in the last half of the year, when we're going into fall and winter, the energy is so wonky, and we talk about the veil being very thin. We're very susceptible to the influences of the dark side. However you define that, whatever your belief system is, and whatever your experiences are, we are influenced by entities that are negative and don't have our best our highest good in mind, and they're playing some other kind of game, and we can be used if we have stuff that we haven't dealt with or we're making bad decisions. It is really a good time, especially with this eclipse in Scorpio, to just lay low and to stay away from the negative side of Scorpio, the sex and the death and the drugs and the addictions, all that type of stuff, Scorpio stuff. Go to the higher side of Scorpio, which is doing the inner work. It's therapy, it's psychology, it's, depth psychology, that kind of stuff. Getting into your own psyche, really, because the veil is thin and we are very porous. Our energy field is very porous at this time. Other people's energy can affect us very profoundly. So be careful of who you're around these days. Be careful of who is influencing you. During the eclipses, just be on your best behavior. Uh, be on your guard. So Tuesday we have the eclipse. It's not a good time to make any big decisions unless you have to, but you have to do what you have to do. If you already know about it and it's coming, it's fine. Just the energy is just low. It's low, it's inward, until the moon starts to grow. So give it a few days. If you really have anything big you got to do, if you can wait, it's cool. But there is this theme of really getting intense about relationships, about finances, about Venusian focuses. Well, it is beauty and art and culture in Scorpio. I don't know, maybe there's some new really good true crime and mysteries, or maybe we're really into that topic. Maybe there's some really scary artwork and people's I don't know, their Halloween decorations are really on point. All right, let's move on. There's not really any aspects from the planets to this eclipse. We've got an inconjunct to Jupiter, which is kind of a awkward aspect, and Jupiter is in Aries, and it's our personal belief systems. With Jupiter in Aries, I'm seeing a lot of people really getting down to what do they personally believe, and what are their beliefs, their principles, their philosophies, especially when it comes to what is right, what is fair, what is just. There's a lot of overhaul going on with our justice system. So that, again, Radamanthus being the underworld judge and this idea, this concept of something above us, beyond us, judging the situation, judging us as a civilization. It does feel like we hang in the balance, doesn't it? This is an interesting aspect happening here. So that's Tuesday. Wednesday, the moon is still in Scorpio. It's going to square Saturn. Maybe there's an obstacle, there's a delay, there's a decision, a certain level of maturity that we need to be reaching. Moon is opposite Uranus in Taurus. This could be financial. I know there's been a lot of ups and downs with the market, with crypto. We usually see a downturn with the market. And I'm not, predicting anything with crypto or stocks or anything in that regard, but we tend to dump. And it just seems like every week there's been a new quote crash. But I can't say whether it will like totally go down, but it could completely bottom out, like reach a new low. It generally speaking, new moons tend to be a high with crypto and full moons are a low. We've been seeing a reverse over the past at least 2 to 3 lunar cycles. We've been seeing a reverse of that where we're down at the new moon and up at the full moon. So does that mean we could like see like a new high? I don't know. Let's see. Or we could be testing the bottom with Saturn. But, don't listen to me. It's not like I'm crypto rich. All right. So that's I'm losing track here. Wednesday. Scorpio moon Wednesday. Thursday, Sagittarius moon, a little bit lighter because we have moon trine Jupiter. I'm trying to watch my time here because I am going to do at least one little reading here. And so we have a little bit of buoyancy after maybe what could have been an intense midweek. Mercury is square to Pluto, so that is news, that is communications about some sort of ending, about some transformation. Plutonian themes. This could be government related, it could be law enforcement, because Scorpio does rule law enforcement too, and so does Jupiter. So we kind of have that going on. Jupiter's being triggered, so it could have some kind of legal ramifications, laws, crime, law enforcement, and the moon in Sagittarius. Sagittarius rules laws and the legal profession, our system of laws, and its moon's making an aspect to Jupiter, which rules Sagittarius. So there can be some kind of theme coming up here with that. It's also dealing with international stuff, diplomacy or lack thereof, what's going on in the world at large, and foreign people, foreign cultures. So that's the waxing moon, and this would be the first crescent on the 27th, right? So that's Thursday. This would be the time where I would recommend, if you're going to wait to start something, this would be the time to start doing or planning. If it's a new thing, if it's not something carrying over from the old cycle, the communication would be serious, heavy, or maybe even dire, because we've got a square from Mercury to Pluto. I mean, this could be, I have to speak up now, or, things could get worse, or this is my last chance to say something, or I've got to say it now, because there's just this real push for some kind of transformation. And I wonder if we're going to have more whistleblower type action, because I saw that with the Mercury retrograde, and there was a whole lot of late Virgo degree planetary action that was connecting to Pluto, and people coming forward talking about the cracks in the system, blowing the whistle, so to speak. I thought it would have to do with unions, but it really didn't. So we'll see what's going on with that. That's Thursday. Friday, we're still in Sagittarius. Moon makes a nice supportive aspect to Saturn. So, working within the structure might seem a little bit easier. Making decisions and commitments. And Jupiter on this day of the 28th moves into Pisces. So that's a big shift, guys. Moving, because Jupiter's retrograde, it's going back into Pisces. So it is going to go not too far into Pisces, but it is going to bring up a lot that happened since the spring. So there's going to be some exposure, some truth. A lot of this will happen through the legal system, because there's a lot of things being challenged right now with lawsuits. So if you're following that kind of thing, or it just could be this sense of spiritual justice happening on a deep level. So Sun and Venus are still traveling together. Venus is starting to move apart from the Sun. This is Friday. They're not really making any aspects. So we're really relying on the moon. And the moon is our collective mood. As the moon goes, so the collective shifts. So we start out with Scorpio in the beginning of the week. It's dark, it's heavy, it's intense. And not everybody likes that. But then most of the week after that, a few days after that, we've got the Sagittarius moon. It's a little bit more uplifting, a little more positive, fire energy, working well with Chiron. So there's a level of healing that we can be experiencing. Perhaps someone who's acting as a mentor, because that's how Chiron functions also. So that's Friday. Saturday, we get into Capricorn. Capricorn is supportive of the Sun and Venus in Scorpio, and Capricorn moon, it tends to be a little bit more serious, but I'm a Capricorn and I like to have fun, and so I'm not all work, but Capricorn moon tends to be a little bit more serious. Like, we really want to focus on getting things done. So if you have to do any kind of work over the weekend, that would be really good. If it has to do with research, that's great, because the Sun and Venus are supporting that. They make a sextile to the moon over the weekend. Pretty good. So we're assimilating things in a mature way. We have an eye towards the future, and we're looking back at the past. We know what we've been through. We know what level we've achieved. And we're ready to bring it by the end of the weekend. And that's Halloween weekend. So that's pretty cool. I kind of like that. Capricorn likes to have fun. It's Pan. Pan likes to frolic in the forest. So that's a good weekend to get out, take a hike. If you're gonna have like a party and a fire in the backyard, which is what I think I'm gonna do for the holiday weekend. The holiday, Halloween. Yeah. All right. So that wraps up the week. And moving back to the chat room. Elf. Is waxing moon another way to say I shaved my butt? You're too much, guy. No. Yes, no. You waxing moon, waxing is waxing and shaving is shaving. And shaving, we get razor stubble and bumps. And waxing tends to hurt more, but maybe it lasts a little longer. I don't know. I never waxed. I'm not a waxy kind of girl, but that's pretty funny. Elf is very funny. If you guys don't know the elf, Pat the elf, he's always bringing the comedy. All right, so what do we got going on here? I know that somebody posted their information in the chat. Where is it? Where'd it go? Oh, red pills and rabbit holes. 8 a.m. Wait, what happened? Come back. Do. Here we go. All right, let me plug that in to my charts. And if you're on YouTube and you are seeing my screen, I'm working with an app called iEphemeris, which is a fabulous astrology app. And it's got all kinds of settings. You can go to the App Store and check that out. And I am putting the information in to cast a chart. And the chat keeps moving. Damn it, chat. Come back. All right, we've got 7, 15, 74, 8:10 a.m. And the time is important when you're talking about casting a chart, because the most accurate chart is based on the time, because that'll give you your rising, the sign that's on the eastern horizon at the time of birth. Or if you're just casting a chart for an event, you need to know the rising. All right. Anaheim, California. Local mean time. Let's see. All right, so basically I am doing a mini reading. It's not an in-depth reading, but what I want to focus on is where the eclipse is happening in the chart. So if you're following along on the YouTubes, and those of you who are listening live, if you want to actually see what the chart looks like when I upload onto YouTube, you can go and check and see what the charts look like. All right, so I don't know if Red Pill and Rabbit Holes has ever had a chart reading before. If you can just type in the chat if you've ever had a reading before. And if you know what your chart looks like, I'm just interested to know. So what I've got here, if the birth time is indeed correct, I have, nope, never had a reading before. Cool. You're a virgin. Hey. All right. So I've got Virgo rising. Sun is in Cancer, 23 degrees. Moon is in Gemini, just about at 0 degrees of Gemini. What else we got going on here? Mercury in Cancer, Venus in Gemini, North and South nodes. North node is in Sagittarius, South node is in Gemini. We've got Saturn in Cancer, Mars in Leo, 23 degrees, Pluto in Libra, and Neptune in Sagittarius. Jupiter is in Pisces. Chiron is in Aries. All right, so what I want to look at is where the eclipse is happening in this chart. And the Sun and Venus right now are in the third house. That's the area of life that deals with the mind, information, communication. It's associated with our early education, our early development, elementary education, as opposed to when we go on, to higher learning, university, college, trade school, whatever we learn after we learn the basics. It has to do with your immediate environment as far as your neighborhood. It's associated with siblings. So for the eclipses, they have been happening in Scorpio and Taurus, which is the third and ninth house axis. So we had a Taurus eclipse in the spring. We had the solar eclipse was in Taurus in the ninth house, which has to do with again, higher learning, higher perspective, our faith, beliefs, belief systems, philosophies, higher education. If you maybe wanted to learn something more, go on, to take some college courses. That's what I mean by higher education, travel, foreign cultures, peoples, lands, whatever. And then the opposite of Scorpio in the third house here. So this is all about integrating some deep information, things that you've been learning, whether it has to do with psychic intuition or psychology or finance, because that's the Taurus part of it, and the North Node. So when we have North and South Node, North Node tends to be building and increasing. South Node tends to be diminishing and releasing. It's not a negative versus positive thing, but we tend to, we can get stuck if we stay with the South Node and we don't work with the North Node. The North Node can challenge us a little bit. So there could have been, things that you maybe wanted to understand more about Taurus things. Taurus is an earth sign. It's physical, it's resources, it's raw materials, commodities, things that we have to build with, to work with. And it is pretty stable, but it's been destabilized over the past couple of years with Uranus here. A lot of changes in the belief system, maybe the belief around resources and finance and material possessions, so to speak, or how to create such possessions, or to create finance, to understand how money works, to adjust the beliefs around what it means, income, assets, and what we possess, what we hold physically, and being that we're having the eclipses in the third house with the South Node, that is releasing, that's letting go a lot of stagnant ideas or the way the mind works. Scorpio is a very, very deep, penetrating sign, and it will go as deep as it can, right? So here, the way the chart is set up here, you've got the third house cusp. That's the line here that delineates the second house from the third house. And we're talking about mental processes, communication, the way the mind works. It starts out with Libra. So the conversation, metaphorically speaking, starts out with diplomacy, harmony, balance, really, getting along. But really, the goal is eventually to get really deep into the psyche, to understand. So the eclipses are activating something here with the mind, like that you really, really want to research further, get deep into. It can have to do with psychology, parapsychology, paranormal, the occult, even genealogy and history from that perspective, family lines, lineage. Where does this stuff come from? What is the root of it? Scorpio needs to know. Scorpio is not going to be satisfied until it knows everything, right? So this is the way the chart is set up with the mind and the communication. And really, the goal here with the South Node is to release. So it's releasing information, but in a very scorpionic way. So it's like the way we can connect the dots and certain signs and synchronicities and rabbit holes, red pills and rabbit holes. Once you latch onto something, wow, you really need to go like deep into it. You're going to be going to a deeper level, whether it's your investigations or the understanding of your own psyche, what makes you tick, what makes other people tick, why does evil exist? Why shit's so fucked up? You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. Let me see in the chat if I have any kind of feedback here. What's going on? I only got 20 minutes left, so oh, that's so cute. All right. Jeff says he's no virgin. LOL. That's so funny. So however that relates to what your focus is. Now, if I was doing a reading and we were talking and I was getting feedback from you, I would know really where to hone in on. But I'm just looking at the degrees. It's activating your Mercury in Cancer, which is Cancer. All the water signs are very intuitive, very psychic. So like you just instinctively kind of know the water of spirit just kind of like guides you that way. It's like, you just kind of know. And so this is an activation on a deeper level, on a psychic sense, the psyche itself of your mind, because the eclipse is making a trine to Mercury in Cancer. Like it's only a degree off. For you, Mercury, because it rules Gemini, that's communications, and that's your 10th house. It rules your moon. Your moon is also being activated by the degree, although it's an adjustment. There's some adjustment with communication and whatever you do to put yourself out there in the world, because that's the 10th house, the top of the chart. That's your public presence, your information and communication, the way you communicate, what you communicate, and taking it to a deeper level. So whatever it is that you do, you're about to do it like, you're about to go on some next level shit with this. And I think that it's all of the information that you've been collecting and researching over the past, I don't know, year and a half, really 2 years, because when the nodes were in Gemini and Sagittarius, that would have been transformative for you also. So now it's time for you to release the Scorpio Kraken with the eclipses, if that all makes sense. That looks really exciting. So like whatever it is, there's also a very supportive angle from Venus and the sun to your ascendant, which is another part of your personality. It's just like, it's kind of like your operating interfacing software where you interface with other people and the world. And it's through Virgo, which is very much analytical, details, perfectionism. So it's time to kind of polish things up and dust things off if you've been putting anything off or hesitating about communicating certain things that you know, because and it's time. There's definitely an activation there about whatever investigations. I mean, if you just like, God, whatever it is, if you want to know it, just ask and it'll come to you like almost magically. Okay, that's it for red pills and rabbit holes. And thank you so much for playing along. And I got 15 minutes. So Jago Fetch wanted, I think, to do a reading. And we're going to do that really quick. Just to remind everybody, I do book sessions. I do have eclipse special. Whenever we have eclipses, I can look at the eclipse specifically in the chart, and that is a discounted reading. So if you email me at astrolunachick@gmail.com, I can set up a reading. I'll send you my booking information. If you just want to do the eclipses to figure out like what the theme of the eclipses are for you, we could do that. I could do that on the phone. I could do it on Zoom. I can email you a brief, mini reading. The mini reading, I could do it by email. I could do it by, I could upload a video, your own private video you can access, or you can send it out to other people and share it with whomever you choose, but it will be private and it'll be like what I'm doing right now on YouTube, which is I share my screen so you can actually see it if that interests you. Some people don't give a shit, and that's fine too. I love you all. I don't judge. But, for some people it's distracting, and for other people, they are interested. They want to learn astrology. So it's helpful to find out. And I want to just go through this really quickly because I don't want to run out of time. So we're just going to look at where the eclipses are happening in Jago Fetch. I'm just going to call you Jago. Hope you don't mind. All right, Jago. All right. Jago. And we've got Leo rising. Jago, have you had a reading before? Please answer yes or no in the chat. Doo-doo. Doo-doo. All right, well, I'm waiting for the answer. We got a Leo rising here. We got a Leo rising in the house. Everyone, pay attention. All right. So, yeah, Jago is an Aquarius. Oh, how nice. I have an Aquarius moon, and my Aquarius moon is on your descendant. So, my chocolate is in your peanut butter, so to speak. Don't get excited. It doesn't mean anything other than we're both weirdos. Aquarius in the house. I love it. Yeah, I'm a Capricorn, but I have Aquarius moon, which makes me a weirdo. And that's why I'm like into astrology and all kinds of like weird stuff. I'm fringy. You know, Aquarius is the rebel, is the visionary, and like stand in awe. All right. So the eclipses where they're happening in the chart is down at the bottom of the chart. Wow, that's interesting. All right. So this part of the chart at the very bottom, if you're looking at a chart, it says I see Imam Chali. It is the part of the chart that has to do with our inner world, our home base. It has to do with home and family. And the eclipse is happening. So the IC, the cusp of the fourth house. The fourth house is about the family. And the degree that I have here, if birth time should be accurate, is 5 and some minutes, 5 degrees. So the eclipse is happening like just a few degrees off of this bottom part of the chart, this like home base. So this can have to do with your family, your own family that you have, if you have created your own family, or the family of origin. It can have to do with the home that you live in. It can have to do with your inner world, because the bottom of the chart is our personal inner landscape, and then the top of the chart is the public, what everyone else sees, how we show up in the world. And so there would be, with an eclipse there, a solar eclipse, you could move. There could be something about your psychology and the family of origin and issues that you dealt with growing up within your family. Obviously Scorpio and that house in particular are very psychic. So this could have to do with the initiation of certain gifts or a level of your psychic abilities and the way you take in information psychically, and everything having to do with Scorpio that I've been mentioning the whole show about Scorpio: investigations, genealogy, death, rebirth, wow, I can only imagine. But an eclipse on this part of the chart can really bring up some family issues for you to deal with or understand on a deeper level. The other possibility is moving. So I don't know if you're planning on moving, or you want to move, or you have moved, but it is a change to the home base. So if you're not moving, maybe you want to you need your home to be more private, right? Because security, that's definitely a theme that comes up with Scorpio, security of the home. So that's something that you might want to look at, like getting, cameras and security equipment and alarm, that kind of thing. Um, Scorpio really wants to be safe. So definitely this will have to do with themes of safety and maybe bringing up whether or not you felt safe in your home growing up with your family, what went on, and processing through those things. They may come up again, certain themes like that, about safety and intimacy and anything having to do with the Scorpio themes, of trust. Also, Scorpio is associated with being able to trust and being able to be vulnerable and share our secrets with people, like our deep darkies. So that is a really interesting aspect to be having with this eclipse. Now, the lunar eclipse will happen in the 10th house, the top of the chart. So 2 weeks later, we're going to have a full moon lunar eclipse, and that's going to be on Uranus. So there could be big changes coming to your public image, your job, your profession, because this part of the chart, the 10th house, has to do with how you show up in the world and what you're here to contribute. So big changes going on. Home, public, right? Private, family stuff, public, what you do out in the world, how the world sees you, reputation, job. There could be changes coming. There could have been a lot of changes happening because Uranus has been going through that part of the chart for several years now. The North Node is going to move to the top of your chart here, right here, the MC. That's a big change when it comes to what you do, how people see you, your reputation, what you're here to achieve. This is the pinnacle of your achievement in this lifetime. So I hope that you found that helpful, and we are wrapping up the show. I've got 5 minutes left before I hand it off to, let's see, who is coming up next? Let me look at the schedule. And if you're not on etalk.tv, get your ass over there and check it out, because it's all about radio. I didn't talk too much about Radio Communicata. That is an asteroid. The moon at 8 degrees today, as I'm doing the show, is conjunct Radio Communicata. The number, because all asteroids have numbers, the number of that asteroid is 11144. And can I tell you how I have been bombarded with the number synchronicity of 144 for weeks now? It's amazing. And not to brag, but the eclipse is happening on my natal Radio Communicata. And here I am doing live radio. I'm so stoked. So what do we have coming up next? Consciously Rising. Stay tuned for Consciously Rising. That's Jeff. I believe that's Jeff. Going back into the chat. Check it out. If you don't have a social media profile, it is Jeff with Consciously Rising. Definitely check that out. And I've had so much fun today. God, 2 hours just blew past me. I didn't even have to take a bathroom break. I'm so proud of myself. Because if you know me, you know I pee. I pee all the time. It's what I do. I pee, therefore I am. So thanks for joining me, everybody. Thank you for my astro victims that put their chart information out there. You guys are so cool. Red Pills and Rabbit Holes and Jago. Thank you, Dragon Rose. Thank you, Beyond the Strange. Thank you, Jeff. We owe it all to you. You the man. You the man, Jeff. Thank you to everybody. It's been a lot of fun. I hope you all enjoyed it. Really appreciate you guys coming out and supporting. And go over to my YouTube channel and subscribe if you haven't. If you haven't, what's wrong with you? Get over there. AstroLunaChick. All right. I am going to sign it off because that's what the boss said. I gotta sign it off a few minutes before my time is up. Okay. Later, guys. I'm outie. Catch you next time. Ciao. Ciao, babies. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody in the chat. Love you guys. You're the best. Love you. Bye-bye. Hang up. No, you hang up. All right, I'm going to hang up now. I'm hanging up now. All right, bye. How did it get to be 3 o'clock? Oh my God. Just blue. Blue, blue, blue. Fuck. Oh my God. Oh my God. Ah, Zoom is still recording and I'm belching on air. Oh my God. She's such a lady. Such a lady. Well, if you're on YouTube, now we know each other well enough I can burp in front of you, right? I promise I won't take you into the bathroom with me. All right, YouTubies. Thanks for hanging in there and making it through another episode of AstroLunaChick's Guide to the Universe. Be safe with the eclipses. Mind what I said. Listen to the Capricorn because we know. All right, don't open the door for any black-eyed children. That's my best advice. Don't drink and drive. Okay, guys. Ciao for now.